Hello, everyone.
Welcome back
to another episode of Grow As We Go. The special guest,
once again,
Miss Tiffany.
We couldn't get enough of her.
So she back again. She's not sick of us yet. So she back.
No, we could literally talk for hours. This is just us like recording it.
Yeah,
we really do talk for hours when we hang out. We just be like, la, 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 la. Like right before we're recording this, we press play. We had a whole conversation about colors. Just be yapping and yapping.
I was gonna say, I was like, we're just yapping.
But today we have a very interesting topic. We're gonna be talking about creativity and what that means for us and how we exercise creativity and how creativity looks for each one of us. Because I'm sure it looks different for everybody.
Yeah,
but
and we're all creatives in
100%.
Different ways, but also
100%.
similar ways. I feel like you are like in the depths with your career, and then I feel like you're in like diving, exploring. And
you're definitely creative.
Yeah, but
everything you do, I feel like is creative. Like the way that you dress, the way that you go about life, even your lifestyle is a very creative lifestyle. Not in terms of like, when I speak creative, I'm not speaking like just artistically.
Yeah.
I'm also
I was
just
speaking
like
more artistically. Okay.
But that's like what, like, if you want to get into it, like, that's what I don't think I thought the same way, that like to be a creative, you had to, it only meant in an artistic way. But it like the book that you told me to read, The Creative Act, right? By Rick Rubin. Such a good
She's
book.
right there, right here.
Yeah.
I
brought my own copy too.
We're showing it right now on video.
Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. Such a good book.
And you actually told me to read it. But ever since reading that, I'm still like in the process of reading it, but it immediately starts off by saying like, you do not have to exclusively be artistically creative to be a creator, to be a creative. And I think that that's so interesting, and it made me look at everything that I do so differently. Like how Angie was saying, like you know, the way that you rearrange your room, and the way that you dress, the way that you like make these specific choices in your daily life are creative choices that you're making, and it's you expressing yourself creatively.
For sure.
But we never see it as that. And I didn't until I read that, and I was like, that's why I enjoy these things so much. Like, you know, just picking an outfit for the day or like I put so much importance on it. And I thought because, it's a thing that I like doing, but no, it's a form of
you're practicing
your creativity.
For sure. Like, I feel like your routine and the way that you've chose to rule your life is very creative because you went away from the norm that has been set out for people, quote unquote, and you chose to kind of rearrange it.
Are you saying like in general right now, or are you like
I'm talking about
directly
you. Yeah, I'm talking about you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like the path that you chose is like
a very
creative?
Like you just took your time really cultivating and creating that. And I feel like that requires a creative mind, someone who is able to think outside of structures and think outside of normalities that's been pressed upon us, you know?
Yeah, I guess. Because I guess like creative is just another way of seeing something. Because you know how everything that we see was created by creativity? Like someone had to think a different way in order for it to be created. So I guess in that sense, where it's no longer living in the same lifestyle and you change it with your creative.
Just like anything that you're cultivating is creative.
You create thoughts and like idea, and you put them out there in the world if you decide to, and that is you being a creative. That is you, like that is
because you're creating something.
And then there's a difference between creator or no, is it the same?
Because I guess that's where we're trying to strip away the part, because people think creative is like, oh, you have a artistic creative brain, but creative is just like, I am a creator.
Okay.
Right? At least I like to think of it that way.
I think that both, like, because you're being creative in the way that you go about your choices that you make. Not everyone, I'm not making the same choices in the morning as both of you are. Like, and that's us choosing, you know, like how we, like even in those small little mundane like tasks.
Yeah.
You're, you know, like Angie might do it in a way that to her, like, you know, like
Makes sense.
It makes sense.
Did this book like change your guys' perspective like into this, or before, like as it was artistic? Like when did you guys flip the switch?
I don't know if this book made that switch for me. I think it was I started to learn that through spirituality, and then this was kind of like a reinforcement, and it also allowed me to see it more from like a way of being, a way of life, because I feel like being creative is essentially like a way of life. It's not just a thing you do to create art. It's just an act continuously every day.
It's, I think after reading this book is when I realized how many like choices and things that I do throughout my day that do require like a creative process, which is like second nature to a lot of us. But until I read the book is when I realized like, oh, I am making these, you know, like creative decisions every day in my day to day. I just wasn't like identifying it as a creative process.
And that's what I love that Rick Rubin talks about, is that everybody is essentially creative.
Yeah.
I love that.
I really like that too, because I think it's really hard to like as someone who is exploring and like trying to see what like creative outlet I enjoy most.
Because it could look like so many things.
Yeah. And I think as someone who's navigating that, it's really hard to call yourself a creative because you don't want, and we've had this conversation. I'm like, I don't want to say like, oh, I do photography. Because I feel like, no, I'm not even there yet. But the way that he puts it is like, no, everyone has the capability to create, and everyone is innately like creative, whether they decide to share those like that creative process with other people and put it out in the universe, then that's up to them. But I really like that it took away like that exclusivity that I think sometimes the space could, you know, like hold, I guess. That's just from my like from where I saw it. I always felt like, oh, like I'm not creative enough to be called a creative, or I'm not, you know, I'm not to that level.
Yeah.
And did you attach that word? I mean, at that level, do you see it as like I'm not good enough?
Yeah.
Or I don't practice it enough?
I think a little bit of both. Like I think because I didn't practice it enough, I'm not good enough, so I can't call myself that. And I felt like, no, that's not a word that I want to describe myself with.
You were limiting it.
Yeah, because I genuinely felt like that's not fair to those people who actually do this and practice it. But there's nothing wrong with just understand. I think after reading, you know, now reading the book, I'm understanding, no, everyone is innately creative. And I think that's so, I don't know, that's really cool to see how other people's process,
for sure,
like
I think one of my favorite things that this book has allowed me to see is that how also, again, creativity is not just artistic. Even like a scientist is extremely creative because they have they have to think outside the box to get through their hypothesis, their scientific research, whatever. And also mathematicians also essentially really creative, and because they're, you know, again, they're thinking outside the box and trying to create something new. And it's so interesting how that creativity can manifest in so many other ways besides just artistic.
Because essentially it's abilities. To bring into existence. It says like the actual word creative. To create is to bring into existence, which I guess makes sense. Because if you're seeing it in that perspective, it's very like a multitude of things that can, you know.
And then when you think about God, and I feel like a lot of my creativity also my creative journey has also been simultaneously intertwined with my spiritual journey. You know, when you think of God as a creator, God was extremely creative, creating this, you know, this universe, this world, in the way that it functions. And we call him creator. And he brought, what was the definition again? Like
it created into existence.
So such a sick
to bring into
world.
existence.
I mean, word.
I
fucking love that word.
That's so true. It's like a manifestation of what you think your idea is.
For sure.
I think for me, it was just like really interesting to know that now I'm looking at everything that I do way different.
It almost like I feel like it kind of romanticizes the process a little bit too.
Yeah.
You're just like, like, you know, me cultivating my morning routine is also a creative process, and like it makes you appreciate it more because you see it as like this like art form almost, you know?
I'm in that like romanticizing process right now.
I love that.
Of like, because I'm still reading it, and so every chapter and they're very short, so it's
very
easy
digestible.
Read. So every chapter I'm like, oh, that is like I you know, there's like there's my daily tasks suddenly are a little more fun, and I don't know how long it'll last, but like it's really cool to.
I also think it's a book that you can come back to. So if you ever find yourself like streaming away from that, stemming away from that, you could always be like, wait, hold on, let me spark this back up and pick it up again. I feel like I would love to have a conversation with many different people who like artists and scientists and mathematicians and psychologists. I'd love to have a whole like Socratic circle around this book, because I would love to see how every single type of brain interpreted this book and like what are the similarities, what are the differences, and what you took away from it, and blah 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 blah. I feel like that'd be so interesting.
Yeah, isn't it as a teacher like you need to have creativity to know how to create like a lesson plan for your students and how you want them to understand these things in what ways. And so in like terms of artistic creativity, like how do you guys tap into that part of yourselves? Because I know that as creative, it's like a, you know, up and down hill and trying to find inspiration from different things. And sometimes I think that it's easy to feel when you don't have that creative spark. You're like, well, I'm not enough. Like, what? And like you're doubting everything. And like, how do you get back on your feet and be like, no, like I know what inspires me, what I can do, make those steps into doing that and like putting me back into that path.
Me personally, I feel my creativity always comes from a place when I feel most connected to my inner child and where I'm most in environments where I feel like literally a kid, because I feel like as a kid, kids are very curious beings, and I feel like and very open beings. And I think that when I remind myself to tap into my curiosity and my open-mindedness and not try to box away, see life, that's kind of when I'm able to like freely like move through things and then be creative in that process. So, and that looks different in every situation. But one of the things that I do is if I'm like feeling like stuck or stagnant and nothing's really coming to me, I need to get bored. I have to allow myself to be bored and be also sometimes alone, be out in nature sometimes. That helps a lot. And I allow myself to just kind of let my mind run and just get curious about the way the wind. Oh, I'm so inspired by elements. So nature is such a big motivating piece, and a piece that I always kind of come back to find creative sparks. So I allow myself to just kind of like curiously move through nature, and so my mind will just kind of take off on its own.
So it's like taking a step back and not focusing on like a certain project that you need to. It's like going in like in the nature or okay. And then it comes to you with time.
For sure. Right? Yeah. What about you, Tiff?
I feel like, I mean, everything you said was genuinely like what I think only recently I realized how much I will tap into that inner child part, but I don't think I ever put a name to that. I don't think I ever knew like, oh, I was tapping into that. And I think it's really interesting that you brought up how you have to be bored, because I think the conversation around a lot of children now is that they're not bored. And so they're not like, I think we were talking about this, of how like kids these days aren't given the opportunity to be bored. And so I wonder, we were talking about how that might affect their, you know, like how that might stunt their creativity or, you know, because I think everyone, not just us, but like, I think everyone needs to be bored.
100%.
And I think that was a good reminder for me too.
Yeah.
Because I I will talk about this, about kids. And I'm like, I'm so worried about, you know, this next generation and how they're going to grow up with, you know, everything accessible to them, entertainment, everything. So easily. Yeah. They don't have to think of a new way to be entertained because they're already
easy
entertained.
access. Yeah.
And I think that often I forget that too, that applies to me as well.
Yeah.
And that I need to remind myself, like, I need to be bored. So I think you saying that was a really like, oh, I need that. Because I think I, like you had said, I do tap into that inner child as far as just what she, like, how children view the world is always so interesting to me and beautiful. And so I think that part of me sees the world in a different lens than this part, the adult version of me does.
And I also feel like it's because as children, you're still learning and you're very curious. You're also funneling your thoughts through your own perspective. And I feel like when we get older and we're always being stimulated,
conditioned into thinking.
Yeah, so you kind of funnel it through existing structures. Yeah. So it's hard for you to think of something new or kind of separate that for you to think about how do I truly see it based on what I know, blah, blah, blah. Like just funnel it through you.
Yeah.
And there's like, I feel like there's different funnels in your brain, you know, that you kind of run information through that you then push out to create something and bring something into existence. And I think children, when they're bored and when they're not around a lot of stimulus, they funnel it through their own brain without a lot of like existing
like
preconceived like ideas and you know a lot of like outside noise that often like clouds our judgment as adults. Now kids are so lucky that, you know, hopefully most of them don't have that yet. But there is also that issue that this generation might have that. Like they're already exposed to all of that on the internet. And so I really like, I mean, that's a whole other topic. But for me, that's what I always like to go back to. And that version of me that existed without all of those, you know, the outside noise that I think kind of will sometimes affect whatever, you know, affect my creative process and stunt me in a way. So yeah, I really resonate with you on the like inner child part.
And I also think it's important to step away from things and not and funnel it through your own brain, because a lot of the times I feel like creative ideas I don't think are inherently ours. I think they're stowed upon us to then bring into fruition, and they do have a shelf life. And fuck, I lost my train of thought where I was going with that.
That was really good.
Shit. God damn. I'll probably bring this up again later. Anyway, scratch that. But
yeah, there's also, I think I saw in a book, I forgot what it's called, but it was about art and creative and creativity. And it was more so the philosophy of when you create, you're tuning into that divine connection with God. And not necessarily it's you. It's like you're allowing that flow to come within.
Yeah.
And that actually it made total sense, because it's like, yeah, we're so limited, I feel like, as humans, and we need God that all things can happen, and, you know, and that I think that creativity comes from that tunnel when you allow it to come in, and and like silent the noise around you and like go with nature.
Because I feel like this kind of goes back to also too when I have creative block, is because I'm realizing I'm looking too externally for creative inspiration instead of reminding myself that the process really comes from something bigger than me, and I need to step away, remove noise. It's good to look at inspiration to kind of get ideas going and sparking it, but if that's where you get your sources from and that's where you kind of get your ideas from,
you just copy and paste.
You're not creating and not new. It's not nuanced to you, right? So I realize whenever I have a creative block, I need to step away and get bored, because I'm like looking externally at the wrong things and I'm not really funneling through my own self. So
that's really interesting.
But I think growing up, I mean, as a child, I think I was very creative too, like all the dances, all the instruments I played, etc. But as I gotten older, I don't tap into that anymore. But it's not like I feel like it's missing. So I think I'm trying to find out what that creative, I mean, as we say in the beginning, like, yeah, I am still a creator right now, but in an artistic way. I wonder, I'm still, I don't know where I am with that anymore, because I used to like love drawing like 4 years ago and all that, but now I'm not. And so I'm like wondering where that artistic, where that's going to manifest now, you know?
Do you think it's like a lack of time, or like are you just not being drawn to those things?
I'm not being
anymore?
drawn to it.
I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I also feel like your creativeness right now is being shown through the way that you're cultivating your relationship with God, and also cultivating your relationship with what you're going to do for service, like for work. So I think that's just where it's being lit at, like the little flashlights, like right here. I think it's okay. And I think it's also important not to fight that natural pull, because I feel like that's kind of where the gold's at. Like you're naturally going to gravitate towards something. And I think that when you take on the wrong project, or you try to do something that's not really calling to you, that's when if there's too much of a friction, not saying that friction is bad, but if there's too much of a friction, I feel like that maybe sometimes you need to step away from it. And because it's just simply not the right time. You're not being called to really bring that to manifest that into reality, you know? So I just feel like it's okay if you're not artistic in those ways that you used to be, because right now something else is calling to you. Yeah.
It's not like it's very fluid, I think, too.
Absolutely.
I think there's been years in my life where I cannot remember doing something big, like creatively, but then I, like, the end of 2023, I've just felt like
sewing.
Like I picked up sewing and like more crafts, and I thought like, oh, it's just me trying to get more hobbies, but I genuinely love creating something out of nothing. It gives me so much joy and pleasure, and it's a different outlet that I think I've been wanting to do for a long time, but it wasn't until like this last year that I really started just exploring any and every avenue of like creating something, not because I was pushing myself, but because I genuinely felt like it was,
you had the desire
I want to do this so bad. I need to do it, even if I'm not good at it. And my sewing projects are bad right now, but I love just getting to like make something, and I don't know, like a tangible thing is always really cool for me.
And I wonder if it's like, what happens if you don't tap into that? Like, I wonder if there's like a need as humans to practice that part of our brains, and whatever artistic or not. But I wonder if it's
like what happens to yourself
if you
when
don't
you're not exercising.
Just like if you don't exercise, move your body, like you'll become depressed. It's not gonna help you. But when you do take the walk, it's like, oh, you feel like a little bit lighter and like happier, like, you know what I mean?
Well, isn't there a part of your brain that's like the creative side and like the analytical side?
That's what I've heard.
I
don't know the actual
Me
science.
neither. I have no idea.
But I've heard that. So I would feel like I'm pretty sure, I don't know the science about this either, but there's like certain hormones that probably come out, and that when you're creating, I'm sure, because I get a rush of dopamine when I'm creating. I'm like, so I'm sure.
Because I know for some personalities, like it's not as used. I don't know, not used, but they're more.
I think it just looks different.
It looks different, It looks different for each person then.
Yeah, for sure. But I think everybody's essentially, their daily life, they're doing something creative.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned it being fluid, because one of my favorite analogies to use with creativity is comparing it to water. And I really do feel like it's like a wave push and tug, and it's like almost a dance, and you need to be fluid. Like I realize that the best projects and the better my projects are when I allow myself to be fluid and kind of dance through the process and not be rigid. Because when I'm rigid and when I'm expecting a certain outcome, I hit a lot of walls. There's a lot of frustration. But when I dance through them and move through them, move with whatever is happening, that's kind of when I literally feel that it's a dance. Yeah. It's an act of dancing.
You very much have to like go with the flow because even through like a creative project, like I'm sure you know this, like it's not, sometimes it's, it's never you get from point A to point B. It's always you got
A to C to D to B to then step back here to
and it's so like it's good. Everything's gonna look different, and you have to just ride the wave.
Literally. And I'm not saying like you need to like write it and release. You obviously release control, release expectations, but still have leadership.
Yeah.
Like still have because I'm not gonna just release and be like, oh, la-di-di, la-di-di. I don't give a I'm gonna just, but still having, I'm dancing here. All right, the next step, if I have enough like pull, I'm gonna take it here.
Yeah.
And still having that executive, that leadership, that executiveness in your dance. Like, it's like a partner. You let it pull and tug you when it's coming here, but then you also bring it to this direction when it needs to. And it's a beautiful balanced dance. It needs, I feel like there's a harmony in that, you know?
I think I'm still learning that. I think that, and it's really like, I loved watching you talk about it because it just shows your like experience with it, and you know the wave, like you know the water. And like I feel like I'm getting to know her, but I feel like you know her, and it was really like I could cry right now. Because it's so like the way that you talked about it was like you guys are friends, like like she's writing with you, and it just like was so. Watching you work is literally my favorite thing. Like it like watching anyone like do something creative, but watching you work is like my favorite thing. I will like. Come with me to put of course, like I'm there, just because it's so like watching your process and then hearing you talk about it is so inspiring for anyone, I think. But it's like, as anyone who likes to create and likes to just put anything out there, watching you in this dance, like with, you know, whatever creative process you're like in or battling at the time is just so like, it's my favorite thing.
I thank you. And I feel like I love that. I think I can relate. And I wonder if it's because it's really beautiful to see humans super in the moment and present and in love with something that I get. It's an awe, you know. So I totally get you, and I agree.
I think I've talked about this before too with like some friends about how like creativity, or not creativity, but just like watching someone do something is like attractive, like an attractive trait. And I don't know if it's still like in the realm of like creativity, but I mean, we could talk about that. And, like, if you guys gravitate towards people who are like creative, or I mean, we kind of said like we kind of talked about how like everyone is a creative in their own way, but like what does that look like for a partner, or you know, for your friendships? Like, do you need someone that like knows that process or knows your process? Like that's always, what do you guys like feel about that?
I personally like love watching people love something else and talk about it and do it, whether if that's like someone who's also an artist in their respective way. I loved seeing them. I just love seeing people passionate about something, and there's like, I feel like there's a golden light that just kind of stems from them when they're in the process, that it's just so beautiful to see. And also like I think about like my friends or people that I've loved, who, even if they're athletes, watching them in a game was always like super inspiring to see. But oh my,
I love the aspect of them knowing everything about that. And they're like, no, this and that, and you just see them talking these terms, and you're like, I don't know what you're saying at all, but continue. Like,
no, but I love it. Like, I remember, I loved like learning about it. Like, I don't know anything that you're saying, but please take me into your world. Like, I want to know. And it like,
you're awesome. Really good at that.
Yeah,
you're
I love
really good about like making someone shine. Like be like genuinely letting them like explain everything to you. And I think that can be really hard for people to do, because it's you being vulnerable, you letting them know, I don't know anything about this. With my friends, I would be okay with putting myself in that position, but I think I wasn't as likely to do it with strangers. Just because I am more like, I don't know, like reserved in that way sometimes. But I think after seeing you and how easily, you know, and how much you take from that also, just I constantly want to, I always say this, like I love learning. I love being a student of like the world and learning as much as I can from anyone that I can. I think it's really important to be a student and like be in that mindset of like, I'm always going to be a student.
Yeah.
So I try to get out of my shell a little bit with strangers.
Sure.
And I think I really took that from you with like, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like they say no.
Yeah.
I mean, there are,
Or like they just don't want to speak about it. But
yeah.
I think it's important to remind yourself that just because someone is sharing information that doesn't really relate to you, there's still a lot you can take away by how they speak about it, by their wins or losses, by just their experience. There's so much to take away. So I feel like it's never it's a win-win on both sides. There's something being taken from both sides. Like someone also, I think we often forget that people just love to talk about themselves and what they love. Yeah. And so, but sometimes people don't have the opportunity or they've never really been asked those things. So
it has to, I think it has to take like, you have to, being the receiver end of this conversation, be willing to know that you don't know anything. Like you have to put yourself aside and be like, no, I don't know anything. Like, and then like, because some people can say, oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. But it's like, no, you don't know what you're talking. Like you have to admit like to yourself, like, no, I don't know. Like tell me, and I'm interested. And I think that in the beginning it was a little difficult for me because I was like, yeah, but I mean, like, why would I want to care? Like, why? But it's like, no, there's an opportunity for you to learn something. Yeah. Like, because we can all learn from one another, obviously, you know, because we all live these different experiences. So obviously,
yeah. I think that's what is hard for a lot of people, and that's where I can see a lot of people have like I'm not gonna, because then I have to admit that I don't know this, and that sucks. Like I wish that people were just like, no, I don't know, like tell me please. And we're so like I'm so excited when I'm like, no, I don't. Like actually like I am excited to hear you.
And not apologizing for not knowing.
Yeah.
Being like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. Can you explain it? Yeah. You don't need to be sorry.
Yeah.
No.
Like
it's okay, just be
and
like,
I love when vice versa, like the other person that you ask is so excited to tell you.
Yes, that's the best.
When they light up and are like, oh my God, like let me, it's so, I love it. Like I love that interaction. And I loved watching, like I love watching those interactions. So I was like, why don't I just try to, you know, like put myself into that and try to like see what, like what happens.
Yeah. And like, how do you, since you use that creative artistic part of yourself in your career as work, how does that like how does that balance go? Like how do you deal with that balance without feeling so drained and like, you know?
Oh, I think I'm still very much learning that part, and I'm still trying to figure out a system that can allow me to kind of rejuvenate often. It kind of reminds me of like when we were talking about like hormonally, there's some weeks that I just feel more depleted, my energy, blah, blah. But I think I guess to sum it up, it requires me I need to be at a certain level of understanding and have awareness of myself enough for me to know what my needs are day by day, week by week. Because some weeks, like I'm just popping out ideas like it's just spewing out of me like pa, 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 and it's just like so effortlessly. And there are some weeks that it's like the most like like the wheels just take so much energy to just churn for like even the simplest things, and reminding myself that is okay. And I think it's important to be in environments where people understand that. I'm very lucky where my bosses are also very creative, where I remember when I began working full-time for the brand, John, my boss, was like, if there are moments where it's having a hard time for you to create something, like it's okay to take a step back and like only work for X amount of time or whatever. That support. Yeah, because they understand the process. So I think being in environments where that is embraced and appreciated and understood is super important. Because when it comes to creative abilities, and I feel like with a lot of, not even just artistically, but with a lot of industries and fields, you're not a machine. You're not gonna perform the same way every single time. Like you can get close, right? And you can create systems to help you. But you need to know yourself and enough to understand what you need in those given moments, because it's gonna look different every day. So creating systems is important, and having a good level of awareness of yourself and what your needs are is what's been like my biggest help.
Do you feel like you struggle like with your personal projects because it's your full-time job now? Like, have you found a balance between that? Do you think there's a good...
Like your personal creative projects and your work projects?
I think because I'm so new, it's barely been like 5 months that I've been at this job. I kind of allowed myself to not focus on my creative projects just to get immersed and used to this process. I was like, let me get used to this. Let me release the pressures. Let me release. And once I have a good understanding of how much energy it takes out of me, I'll know what I have left to give and blah, 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 blah. So I think now that it's been some time, I'm barely now getting into the mindset of like, okay, let me also make sure I have my other projects on the side going, so that way I could still learn more to bring back into the brand, because there's a lot of learning I have to do outside of it. And also make sure that I'm exercising anything else that comes to me that aren't necessarily tied to work. But I think reminding myself that it's okay for it not to funnel like a routine, but also having the discipline to... It's like a dance between allowing it to be and exist, but then also a dance of discipline. So it's like a beautiful harmony of both.
Being flexible.
Being flexible, but then also being disciplined. Because if I'm too flexible, I'll forget and never do it. But I have to have enough discipline to do it, right? Yeah. So I'm still learning.
Yeah.
But I realized that
structures in place.
Yeah. I realized that when when I have too much of a grip and I'm too rigid and I need to blah, 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 and like I have so much pressure, is when I'm like, I end up resenting the process. So I need to release that and remind myself that discipline isn't intertwined with resentment. I shouldn't have to like hate myself into doing something.
Yeah.
If it's that much friction, like I just need to step away.
Yeah. If it's that hard to start it.
Yeah. If it's that hard. Yeah. Because there's, yeah. For sure.
Yeah, no.
But sometimes like I've been in situations like where I don't want to do something and I go and do it, and while the process like it switches. I'm like, oh no, I want to be here. I want to do this. Like I feel good.
Yeah.
Like yesterday when we were filming the podcast, I was like in such a bad mood. Like not bad. Yeah, I was like in a little. I was in a little mood, and then I came, and during the process, I'm like, no, hold up. Like this is actually like nice. Yeah, sometimes it's a little tug and pull.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like getting yourself to do it, and then it's like, oh, I wanted to do this. Yeah. It was just like the getting yourself to it.
Yeah. If I can go back in time and help my process or tweak my process, I would remember that you need to be... It's helpful to create systems and kind of be scientific in your process. And a lot of the times we're like, I want to create something, I just don't know what, like, I don't know what's calling me, blah, 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 blah. And I think we don't have systems in place to kind of capture and write down and track what we are liking. Like I remember one thing that really helps me is I'm like, I don't know what I want to create. It's like, okay, hold up. Like, what have I been liking lately? And I'll go and like look at my recently liked songs, and I'll like listen to them and see where that takes me. And I close my eyes, see where that takes me.
Music inspires you a lot, helps you.
For sure. And I also have systems on all my applications. Like on Instagram, I have anything that I like. If it's even just what was written in the caption that made me feel something, I'll save it. If it's like the photo I liked, the colors in the photo I liked, I'll save it. The lighting I liked. I just liked it. Save it. Save everything that you like. Put it in a folder, name it like whatever you want to name it. Mine's like, I think just like gravitational pull. And like, I'll put it on there, and then I'll go and look through them and see like, oh, this is where naturally my brain has been liking lately. Yeah. And it's crazy to see like the pattern. And like, I'll be able to group, like depending on like where I am in my life and what I'm going through, I realize there's a pattern of what I'm naturally gravitating towards. And that's usually where I'm like, oh, if this is where I'm at right here, like where I'm at right now, let's see what I can do with this. Not copying it, but using it as like, this is where I'm at. Let's make something out of where I'm at. So I think creating systems in all your applications where you're kind of keeping track of all that.
Yeah. You taught me that. I think that's really, I think that's really helpful.
That's really smart. You're like setting yourself for success.
Yeah. Because you see, you're taking in so many things.
Yeah.
And you're like, whether you know it or not, you're subconsciously taking, you know, little bits that you like from those things and drawing inspiration from it. And like looking back on a folder of everything that you've seen that you've liked is really like, because you even told me like you'll start noticing patterns. You'll start noticing like, oh, I like, you know, like these all have a similarity, and these all, you know, this writing all is similar, or whatever, or I like a lot of things by this creator. So I think it's really interesting to notice those patterns.
It's like you taking research of yourself.
Yeah. You're studying yourself, literally. I think it's really important. I heard this. This is like the last thing that I think I'm gonna say, but I
she said after this.
No, I didn't watch. I haven't watched Renaissance, but I heard that in it, Beyonce or someone, I don't know, I haven't watched it, but there's a saying where she says, "Don't be afraid to be seen trying." And I think that like when I heard that, which wasn't too long ago, I keep thinking back to that like a lot. Just don't, because I think that was my fear. Like I had no issue with, I knew what I wanted to create. I knew what I wanted to get into. I knew what I wanted to start doing. My issue was that I was afraid to be seen trying. I was afraid to fail and for people to see it. But you're going to. Like you're no one starts off being insanely good at something, and if they do, that's great and they should pursue that. But most people don't just, you know, hit the ground running. And so I think we forget that people all started from somewhere. Like people all had a, you know, like they started from scratch, and they had to be seen in that process, and they had to let go of that inhibition of like, people are going to see me fail. People are going to see me trying. And I think that that's scary. So
it takes some pressure off when you say that.
Yeah. So it helped me. It for sure has, I want to go into the new year like with that kind of mantra and that, you know, saying just like, do not be afraid to be seen trying, because that has been my biggest like struggle. It's okay. It's okay to see someone try at something. And I think like when I see someone, I absolutely do not
judge them, and you're
you're a failure. So then why for me is it, you know?
And I think the people who do judge is because they don't understand the process and they just don't get it.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. You don't have to get it. But if you're judging me, it's because you just don't get it and it's not for you.
No,
because those who know, know. And
will appreciate it and will see the value in it.
Exactly. For sure. What about you, Diana?
I think my problem was just doing it. Like I would think too much in my head and be like, no, blah, 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 blah. I had like so many avenues in which I really like to be creative, but it's just me doing it is, I don't know, it was just hard. I think it coincides with what you're saying, but I think it's more of like, I already know the outcome of this. I already know the outcome. Like it's not gonna be as good. Like it's whatever. Like that's the dialogue that I had in my mind. But it's not until it was like, just do it. That was my mantra. Just do it. Just do it. Because that's literally just do it. Just like sit down. If you already know what you want to do, just like draw. If you want to continue doing it like every day, if you want, like just do it. And there's no. It's not as scary as you think it is. I think it feels really freeing and really liberating when you actually are in the moment and allowing yourself to be there and do this and with the time, because it's like so delicious when you're in the creative present moment and just like, you know, allowing yourself like the things to flow and the spirit to flow in you. And it's always worthwhile. Like at the end, you're like, oh yeah, I just did that. That's so cool. Like just tap in the back, like, you know, just be like proud of yourself afterwards. And those little moments too that you decide and like to do that is also important to recognize and like be like, okay, good job, telling yourself that.
I feel like we forget that the process is what's delicious, like you said. Like the process of brainstorming, the process of actually creating, the process after is the delicious part as well than just the final product.
It's all about that process.
For sure. That's where the juice is at. The meat, the meat,
the nutrients. Potatoes. I mean, if you don't eat meat, then the vegetables and potatoes.
What is it like? It's not about, what is that quote? That cheesy ass quote. It's like, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
It's about,
But like,
Did
You
it?
aim it?
Wasn't that one? Yeah, it really is.
Wasn't that a Hannah Montana? Like, it's not the view is great, but the climb.
Oh yeah, it's the
something.
climb.
Yeah, where she sings the climb.
Yeah,
It's just
she was
like,
saying
the
she
view
was
is
spinning
great.
in that song for
Yeah.
sure.
She was
talking about.
ahead.
Yeah, she was ahead. Had to sing this.
Hit every
as true.
time.
Yep. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Thank you.
And listening about, what we think our take on creativity is. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Tiff, again.
Thank you,
for being a part of the
guys.
conversation.
Thank you, guys.
We hope that you guys all enjoyed, I guess, this discourse with us.
Yeah.
Such a
I
yummy,
had so much
juicy conversation to have.
Yeah.
It was delicious.
Yes, it was. And we'll see you guys in our next episode.
Bye.
Bye.